Hello and welcome back to the 1971 podcast with me, Fran Lever. I hope you liked last week's episode and thank you for coming back. This is a learning process, so any feedback is much appreciated. Now, this is mainly from my TikTok because I can't link my podcast yet in my bio due to not having 1,000 followers. If you want to follow me, my username is _FranLever. But my podcast is available on Anchor, Spotify, Apple, Amazon and YouTube. Just search the 1971 podcast and it should appear. If not, please go to the Instagram of the same name and all the links are there. My own Instagram is the same username as my TikTok. My Twitter is just FranLever without an underscore. Now we've got the boring stuff out of the way, let's get down to business. We have so much to talk about today. Guys, the transfer window has officially closed. After what seemed to be the longest month ever, it has closed, and what a window that was. We need to break it down. We need to delve into it because there is so much there. Also, with the window, we now have 13 Aussies in the WSL, the most outside the Lionesses. So I'm going to talk about it and all stuff Matildas. Also just had the FA Cup weekend and some amazing wins. Let's break that down. Let's talk about the matches. Let's do it. But at the same time, with the next round of FA Cup fixtures comes concerns again with the international break, as there's only 4 days between the final day of international break and the day of matches. I said last week I wanted to talk about the London City Lionesses and their journey, so I will. I also want to touch upon World Cup sponsors and player and fan interactions. And finally, Jen Beattie has announced her international retirement from Scotland, so I want to talk about it. This is just a quick disclaimer, the same disclaimer that I put out last week. I want to try and talk about current issues in a fair way, but also at the same time have my opinion on them. I welcome any feedback and will try to share any comment. Right, let's get it over and done with. Let's talk about the transfer window because there is so much to talk about here. What a window this has been. I feel like it started with a bang, went a little bit quiet, and then blew up again right towards the end. I had to write a list out for work, and I'm actually so glad I did, because it makes it so much easier to talk about now. A few notes. Coventry United have done really well out of this window. Isabel Goodwin left Villa on a free transfer, and Connie Schofield is on a loan from Leicester. Speaking of Leicester, they got Ruby Mason on loan from Man City. Now that is a good loan to have, and she will get the game time that she needs. Also, I feel like we need to rename Leicester Aussie FC at this moment. More on them later. I think we need to start with the two transfers that were a shock, but also wasn't. So, the last few lineups for the Lionesses international break have raised a few eyebrows and, created questions to where's this person? Where's this person? I am of course talking about Bethany England and Jordan Nobbs, because I think what has been proven more than ever is that you need game time at club level to be called up internationally. Whilst these two transfers are very similar in context, it is important to highlight the differences too. Loyalty will only get you so far, and that goes both ways. If you're not getting the game time and it's affecting your international chances, you've got to cut that cord. Even if it's to a rival, so to speak. This is business, work. I just want to be honest for a moment, because I'm seeing so many fans of both Chelsea and Arsenal, mainly Chelsea if I'm being completely honest, being critical and judging, being rude. I get it. You don't want to see your players leaving, especially to a rival club. But just think of it like this. You wouldn't want anyone to stay in a work situation where they weren't happy or a co-worker was being given more credit or opportunities than them. Yes, football is the job of dreams for many people, but at the end of the day, it's still just a job. You have to remember, even though money shouldn't be the drive for everything, female players aren't on as much money as they should be. So why would you put up with anything out of the ordinary? Anyways, I'm getting too deep. I just wanted to offer a different point of view to what I'm seeing. I guess it's just easier to judge someone in this position opposed to someone just in the street. You can't be loyal forever if you aren't getting what you need and want in return. So let's break this down. Jordan Nobbs. Like I said in my last podcast, Jordan and Arsenal just went hand in hand. Like, it was one of those things that just made sense in women's football. In no fault of hers or the club, she had injuries, and maybe that affected her game time once returning to full fitness. That cannot be helped. And she is 30 now. Younger talent is coming through. But at the end of the day, you would think that something would give after 12 years at the club, 270 appearances, 81 goals, 12 titles. But I guess it's just one of those things, and sometimes you just have to move on. This World Cup will probably be Jordan's last one, and after missing 2019, it appears to be her main focus this season. Villa is probably the best decision for her. Carla Ward really seems to be building something there. I still think they have a long way to go, and the summer transfer window will no doubt bring so many more players for the team, but the foundations are there. Bringing in Rachel Daly after the Euros has truly proven to be the best thing, and I can imagine as the season goes on, we'll no doubt be saying the same thing about Jordan in the summer. I know Arsenal fans are upset, and rightly so, but this made sense. It was a shock, but it wasn't at the same time. Sometimes you've got to put yourself first, and Jordan has done that. That same sentiment also applies when we talk about Beth England going to Spurs. I think this one was a long time coming, and luckily it happened now, or Chelsea were at risk of having another Deanna Cooper situation. I don't think the documentary helps with that, but it wasn't pretty at the end. I think this move could have happened a few windows ago, but it's good it's happened. This whole thing stems into something I'm going to delve into later with international breaks. But it's been clear for the longest time that Sam Kerr would always be the number one choice for striker. I get it in some ways. I do. But do you know what really confirmed it to me that this move was coming, and it was coming fast? Was the last international break. It was the Spurs game, of all games, at Stamford Bridge. I remember thinking, surely this is the one game Sam will start on the bench because she's coming off less than 5 days back from Australia and drinking coffee on Instagram at crazy times, opposed to Beth, who didn't go to international break and was training at the club all week. Similar to past situations. I get it. It was at the game at Stamford Bridge. They wanted their star striker starting. And to be fair, Sam did score. I think it was one of those things that slowly started to add up. I'll come back to the international break structure later on. Sam Kerr is a quality player, just like Beth, so it's a sad situation, but this was something that had been building for 4 years. Like Jordan, you would have thought dedication, records, and the hard work would have meant something, but sometimes it doesn't. It is just best to leave a legacy. 1 of 7 years, 164 appearances, 74 goals. I look forward to personally seeing both of them shine for the rest of the season, and let's hope it's enough to give them the call up that they really both want for the World Cup. Brings me to the next key point of this transfer window, Australia, or more importantly, their stars. This transfer window has brought the tally of Matilda stars to 13 after adding 4 more players, just in front of Norway and Sweden, who are on 9, and Canada, who are on 5. At a push, you could legit make a starting 11 out of the Matildas that are now in the WSL, because, like I said, we have 13 players. Right, let me try and get all these names in, pronounced right with the teams. So, we have Sam Kerr at Chelsea, Steph Catley and Caitlin Ford at Arsenal, Mary Fowler, Hayley Raso and Alana Kennedy at Manchester City, Claire Wheeler at Everton, Mackenzie Arnold at West Ham, Kaya Simon at Tottenham, Emily Gielich at Aston Villa, Lydia Williams at Brighton, Remy Seenham, I don't think I said that right, but anyway, I apologise, and Courtney Nevin at Leicester. Do you know what? I'm going to do it. Let me try and make a starting 11 from this. we're going to have to go with a 3-3-3-1 from looking at previous Matilda lineups too. So, I actually did prepare this the other day. I'm just trying to like create dramatic effect. So, let's go. Mackenzie Arnold in goal. I think we're going to have a back three, as these players are very midfield and forward heavy. So that's Steph Catley, Alana Kennedy and Courtney Nevin at the back. Then three in the middle. Too many forwards to deal with. Claire Wheeler, Hayley Raso and Mary Fowler. Then Caitlin Ford, Emily Gielick and Kaya Simon. And then lastly, up front, Sam Kerr, leaving the other two on the bench. I think that'll have to do. That was way harder than I thought. Personally, I think it's great we have so many players in the WSL and doing so well. So where does this stem from? Why do we have so many? I think a lot of it does come from the last World Cup. We really got to see the players and their potential. Of course, during that time, it was clear as ever that Sam Kerr is a star. And many of us saw that for years. But with that, it created conversations that she can't be the only one. Open gates to bring more players in. She's not the first player, but she's definitely the one that got people talking. Another angle is the former head coach at Arsenal, being from Australia. And during his time, he brought in Caitlin Ford, Steph Catley and Lydia Williams. In the last few years, manager Tanya Oxtoby brought in players into Bristol City before they moved on. Tanya is now, of course, assistant coach at Chelsea. West Ham have had a few Aussie players, including Mackenzie Arnold, who is still there. Before joining Alana Kennedy, whose first WSL team was Spurs, she joined Hayley Raso at the same time at City, who was at Everton. And obviously both made their mark before Mary Fowler joined them. And now Leicester, they're adding both male and female Aussie stars. So I think we're going to have to rename Leicester Aussie FC at this point. So, what is making people look at Australia? They are increasingly gaining popularity and ranking in the world. In the last 3 Women's World Cups, they have placed 8th, 7th and 9th. In 2016, for the Olympics, they made it to the quarterfinals. And in the 2020 Olympics, they placed 4th, which is their best result in the competitions. They made it to the quarterfinals of the Asia Cup. They also won the Cup of Nations in 2019 and the Tournament of Nations in 2017, just to name a few achievements. And also they are currently ranked 12th in the whole world, which will probably increase after the summer. They are making a dent in the world of women's football, and people are taking notice, so why would you not want to bring them to one of the biggest and most popular women's leagues in the world? Their opening fixture against Ireland in the World Cup has now moved stadiums due to the demand for tickets. The previous stadium held 42,000. Now Stadium Australia holds 82,500. They've doubled the capacity. To sum up this transfer window, it's definitely been an interesting one. I want to end on 2 rumours that just seemed to light up Twitter as soon as it hit. It definitely created some last minute drama for the window. I am of course talking about the Katie McCabe to Chelsea rumour, followed by the drama of Alessia Russo moving to Arsenal or not. Arsenal fans, please don't come for me when I comment on both of these. This is just my opinion. As much as Katie is a real asset to Arsenal, and it would be a big loss for them, I think she's exactly the type of player that Chelsea need right now. What Chelsea need is someone that is versatile. Katie can play fullback, winger, forward, everything, you name it. What we've seen at Chelsea is that if you're not the preferred starter for a position and you're not versatile enough, you're not going to get the game time. If you can cover other parts of the pitch, you're going to get played. I think she just would be a really good addition to Chelsea. But Arsenal can't afford to lose her at the same time. I think this is a real testimony to the type of player she is, though. It's also worth mentioning that Katie is a childhood Chelsea fan. You don't go with the intention as a player to play for your team, but if the situation and terms are right, you're going to consider it. I don't think this rumour is going to go away. It's actually something I thought about before in terms of Katie being versatile. We like to talk about Katie against Erin Cuthbert whenever there is an Arsenal versus Chelsea game, but could you imagine them playing together? I think we will still be talking about this in the summer transfer window. I don't think Arsenal will give up on her easily, but let's have this conversation again in August. Talking about players being versatile, I wanted to add a note before I started talking about Alessia Russo's potential move to Arsenal. I did see Chelsea fans jumping on board saying that they wanted her there instead. In my opinion, that would not work. Though overall they are two very different strikers, I think Alessia to Chelsea would just be another Beth England situation. She would just be on the bench all the time. And a player like her cannot spend her career on the bench. She's not versatile enough for the current Chelsea squad. She needs to go to a club where there's space for a striker and nothing else. Not somewhere where she's going to be considered the second option, because a striker has to be the first choice and nothing more. Now, Arsenal are desperate for a striker, but I did not expect this. My first thought was, world record transfer. Arsenal really cannot let Spurs have anything, can they? And then I thought, she's literally free in the summer. Why are you looking to spend so much money when in 6 months she's going to cost nothing? Now, whilst I think Arsenal would be a better fit for her than Chelsea, I don't see her at another WSL team anytime soon. I see her at Lyon. I've said this for the longest time. Plus, the fact that she'll be on a free transfer means she has more freedom to go where she wants. It is very smart. She can legit keep United on their toes with a contract extension whilst having conversations with other clubs. But it is a tricky situation to be in though, because she could promise to go somewhere in an X amount of months, but then pull out unless there's some sort of an agreement. I think again, the summer transfer window is going to be very interesting. And I think United made the right decision in putting their foot down. Okay, let's talk about some actual football, shall we? At the weekend, we saw a flurry of FA Cup games, but the only issue was it was next to impossible to watch the games. The Spurs versus London City Lionesses game was on iPlayer, which I worked on, and I really enjoyed it. But it was not like the usual BBC Prime slot and had no pundits, etc. I believe it was a really good opportunity for both teams, but after that, the games weren't shown. I managed to watch some of the Chelsea v Liverpool game because it was free to stream on the website. Other games, you had to have a paid subscription to watch the games, which makes sense for fans of those clubs, but if you're a neutral, it's not accessible. So unfortunately, I can only comment on so much. I'll start with the Chelsea v Liverpool game. That was a very close and tight game. I also liked the fact after a few weeks of criticism from some fans, Niamh Charles is getting back to the quality of player that she has shown in the past. I really rate her, and sometimes when you're young, you can dip in form. It is normal. It's when it continues, it becomes a problem. I think she has great potential, and we shouldn't write her off straight away. Another person that I'm really glad that seems to be getting back to the player that we know is Sam Kerr. Now, I could spend an entire podcast talking about her, but I won't. Obviously, she is one of the best strikers in the world, and her reputation speaks for itself. But I think before the break, like the Christmas, whatever break you want to call it, I will be honest, I was worried about her. Again, it is normal to dip in form, but I think from what we were expecting in the transfer window, it happened. I remember thinking before Christmas, she's legit going to be the only striker left. Now, I don't know whether it was the break or she's using the pressure of being the only striker by trade at Chelsea left in a positive way, but I'm impressed so far with her performances since the start of the year. I just hope it continues. I think it's going to be difficult with the international break, which I'll go into later. City won their game 7-0, which could be argued it'd be down to the opposition, like Arsenal winning against Leeds 9-0 and Villa winning theirs 11-0. But overall, we just need to look at those key players who scored. Bunny Shaw got a hat-trick. Give her a chance and she's going to score. It doesn't matter if City are playing Sheffield or Arsenal, she's going to take a chance to score, and 9 out of 10 times she's going to score. I think she's a real contender for the Golden Boot. But I just have this gut feeling that Rachel Daly might just come in and take it. With the FA Cup, sometimes comes rotation. So it gives chance for other players to get game time. But I don't know what it's going to give for Hayley Raso and Mary Fowler to get game time. Being in multiple competitions should allow that chance for rotation. Mary was used as a sub during the game, but I think she should be starting more. Arsenal also had a good run with the goals shared by old and new players, but I don't think it was the score that fans will remember. Well, not the only thing. We finally got to see that shirt swap with Leah Williamson and Amy Woodruff. Heartwarming video showed Leah in the stands ready to take her shirt down, and then we saw the actual exchange. It's competitions like the FA Cup that make football so special. You have clubs that perform in lower leagues that have the chance to then perform at a higher league team. I think the Leeds manager put it perfect post-match. It gives the players the chance to play against the best and see what they need to do to get at that level. Like, they didn't go with the intention to win. They went with the intention just, to take it all in and absorb it, which I think is amazing. Leicester and Reading ended in a penalty shootout. And that one I was particularly feeling a certain way for not being able to watch it. Controversial, but I love a shootout drama. Sometimes. Sometimes it can be stressful. But overall, it's fun. And I bet it was feisty. Villa's game ended 11-0. And of course, Rachel Daly was on the score sheet 4 times, proving herself to be one of the most versatile players in women's football right now. Now, to Spurs and London City. Let me tell you, for the first 10 minutes, I thought London City were going to score. They are chasing promotion at the moment, and I think they're looking really good. I knew it was going to be a good game and it was going to be feisty, but I didn't think it would be a 5-0 result. Obviously, Spurs have of course, just signed a striker who's hungry for goals. And it was always probably going to end up opening the goals. From then on, it was just like a domino effect with the goals, and unfortunately, there was an own goal. I did think that London City were going to pull it back and get at least 1 goal. There were points of that game that I thought that he performed really well. From transcribing the commentary, a point really stuck out to me. It was a 5-0 win, but the performance did not reflect that. It was nowhere near a 5-0 win. London City performed so well. On that, I want to talk about London City Lionesses before moving back to the FA Cup and the issues around the next round. London City Lionesses. I've been following them for a while and I think they're doing really well. I was surprised but also not surprised to see Melissa Phillips step down as manager at this key moment in the season. I do think though, if somewhere like Angel City comes knocking, you have to take the opportunity. It's a difficult one because of how the dates of the US League is different to the WSL. I think that credit must go to her as the team went from being 6th in the Championship in the 20-21 season to 2nd in the 21-22 season. I think the team is really going places, and I just hope that this doesn't dent their chances of promotion. So a little bit of context. Their games against each other haven't even been played yet. They are facing each other this month and then in March. So the last few months of the Championship promises to be exciting. Right, let's switch this back to the FA Cup because there's something I hadn't fully realised about the next round of fixtures. The next match day for the FA Cup is the 26th of February, which is 4 days after the next international break. This isn't a break for friendlies either. We have so many competitions. The Arnold Clark Cup, the Cup of Nations, the Pinter Cup, She Believes Cup, all very exciting and fun. But it just adds to the argument that the women's international break isn't structured all that well. The Arnold Clark Club. It's in England. So with that, the Lioness is all in action until 4 days before the FA Cup game. It's not great, so don't think I'm about to dismiss them because the fitness side is just as important. It is so much to ask to finish a game on a Wednesday night and then just be back in club training the next day on the Thursday, getting ready for the games on the Sunday. It's better, in my opinion, if these competitions run Monday to Friday and then could have the weekend to rest / slowly return back to club training with no matches that weekend and then have a full week of training before the next set of matches. I see that a lot with the men's game or games ending at the weekend, so then at least they have at least 5 to 6 days to recover opposed to only 3 to 4. I've seen some argue that that's their job, but really, how far are you going to push them? So, fitness and recovery is one thing, similar to the Pinter Cup, which would involve both Scottish and Welsh national teams. It's been hosted in Spain, So only one hour time difference, which is still not brilliant, but then you've got to add major jet lag. The Cup of Nations is going to be in Australia as they're hosting it. That is a good percentage of the 13 Matildas that I mentioned earlier, including Sam Kerr. There is no way Chelsea will not play her on the Sunday because the game is against Arsenal. They didn't rotate her, as mentioned earlier, before when they had the backup striker. So they definitely can't do it now. If they do, I will be pleasantly surprised. But I just can't see it happening. So, Cup of Nations ends on the 22nd, which will be the 21st in Australia. She'll have to get back ASAP. The flight time and the time difference. She'll be back the Thursday at the least, with jet lag. Luckily for Chelsea, she's not injury prone. But how long do they want to test that theory? Of course, it's going to be an issue for all the Aussie players for that FA Cup weekend, but other clubs can afford to rotate them, as we've seen at City. When they returned last time, only one player, Mary Fowler, travelled to Everton for their away game. Chelsea cannot afford to do that. I think it's a lot to ask a player. City will also be faced with a similar issue with Bunny Shaw, as Jamaica are also in the Cup of Nations. But then again, City can afford to rotate Bunny. International competitions like this are so exciting, and you want to encourage them, but putting them slap bang in the middle of the season with barely any recovery time is a concern. This is just another reason why it needs looking at. Also, Canada and Brazil are in the She Believes Cup, which is going to be hosted in the USA, which will affect the fixtures again. So many international fixtures are happening at such an important time of the season. I think the Chelsea and Arsenal game is probably the best and the worst matchup to have. It will be good because they will both be faced with issues from the international break and after will rely on rotation and possibly academy players. But at the same time, with two of the best performing teams in the country, you're going to want to start your best starting 11s. So it's going to be interesting. City are away at Bristol. They seem to be travelling a lot there at the moment. So that will be very interesting, but they're very likely going to be able to start a rotated squad. Other matches that may be affected is Spurs versus Reading and West Ham versus Villa. So I guess we're going to have to see how rotation plays out there. I think is it going to be a case of a little too late? Moving on, I want to talk to you about something that I had to do research on to get better understanding. It was announced this week that Visit Saudi has been accepted as a sponsor for the Women's World Cup by FIFA without consulting either one of the host countries, Australia and New Zealand. I wanted to look more into this and get every side before making my own opinion. I think what we saw with the Men's World Cup being hosted in Qatar, it opened a can of worms to say the least, and it was a difficult balance to get right because you risk being labelled racist, Islamic phobic, etc. That's the last thing that we want, and something I definitely don't want to be seen as. I remember it being said during that World Cup that the women would never go out to Qatar out of protest due to the rights of the women and the LGBT plus community. But then I said there wouldn't be a World Cup in Qatar for the women. Like, it just wouldn't be hosted. I personally don't want to shut out any part of the world to be involved in competitions like this. The issues that are important are underneath. The people have took the issue with Visit Saudi's sponsorship. The reason why people have taken they're up in arms about this is the country itself has a poor record of human and women's rights. They've banned women travelling abroad on their own. Whilst we can have my question here is simple. Why would a travel company where its country bans women from travelling unless they're with a man, wanting to sponsor a women's football competition, which women will be travelling to, possibly on their own, and go against their own beliefs, all for a money grab? This is the opposite of the Qatar situation. We would go into their country. Yes, you invite the world to your doorstep, and the world is full of different people of different walks of life, but ultimately that is their country and cannot be changed. It was hard for me as a queer person who wants everyone to be equal, but that was the sad reality of that situation. The difference here is a company wants to sponsor a women's competition in countries where it's okay to be who you are. You want us to respect your beliefs, but you're putting yourself in a situation where your beliefs are going to be challenged. I've been saying this for a while, but this World Cup is going to be one massive Pride Month and a celebration for everyone. It's going to be showing the true meaning of girl power. We can say what we feel about these kind of situations in their countries and express disgust, but ultimately that is their country and their rules. The only thing we can do is be a voice and an ally for those who need it. But for this company to want to sponsor and for FIFA to accept that, to sponsor a competition that would never happen in their country, is something that's quite baffling to me. I want any company with a good background to be able to go and have those opportunities, but not one that goes against everything this competition is about. Do not come and force it on others where people are more free. You're going to be putting yourself in a situation where you're going to be seeing things that you don't like, and this time people will not be suppressed or hide it. You're asking these countries, these host countries, to accept you, who you are and what you stand for. But it's going against everything that this competition is about. Australia and New Zealand have written to FIFA asking them to relook at the decision, because right now it just looks like a money grab. There is no dispute that that company will bring a lot of money into the competition, but for this, values, respect and doing what is right is more important. It's also important to remember that up until as late as 2017, women in that part of the world were banned from going to football games. The whole thing just doesn't sit right with me. It feels wrong. Like I said, I want people to have access to these opportunities, but sometimes you have to go deeper than how much money can be put into something. FIFA has declined to comment, which I think says a lot at this time. There's other companies that can provide sponsorships that reflect what this competition is all about. Next thing I want to talk about is player and fan interaction. What I'm seeing an increase of is some fans believing they're entitled to selfies, signatures, t-shirts, etc. I'm going to give you 3 examples I've heard from personal experience. I'm not going to name the players, but hopefully you'll get the picture either way. That player's so rude, I don't like her now. Me? Why? Well, she was talking to someone and I was shouting to her and she asked me to stop shouting in her face when she was speaking to someone. Actual cricket noises. You've legit just said everything that needed to be said. But let me tell you, this certain player, no one else has ever said that about her. Ever. She's probably one of the nicest players in the WSL when it comes to fans. She gets nothing but praise for going above and beyond. So yeah, you're shouting at someone in their face whilst they're talking to someone. It warrants a response like, can you stop shouting at me please? Another situation. That player has food. She's going to have to put it on the floor and come and have a photo with me. No one has to do anything like that, and especially not putting food on the floor. Finally, I don't care if it's cold. I'm here, so they have to come over. They literally don't. That's just rude. If you're travelling to purely meet a player, then you're coming for the wrong reason. It's not in a player's job description to stop and take photos, sign things, etc. They do it out of the kindness of their heart. And if they don't stop, they aren't rude. It isn't part of their job. Also, if you don't get what you want on a certain day, that doesn't reflect on them as a person, a player, etc. So it doesn't give you the right to go and blast them. Everyone is entitled to an off day. I'm not going to name a player, but one time, someone pretended to be on the phone and I could legit see their Spotify open. Others didn't see it, but it still makes me laugh now when I think about it because it was so obvious, but clearly others didn't see it. I'm not saying don't try and meet players. If the opportunity presents itself, then go for it. I've met players. Always ask. Just don't assume and don't be rude if they say no. Just have an open mind, be nice, because one day it might stop if this gets worse. Then what will you say? What will you say? I'm already seeing certain clubs up their measures over players. I'm going to end on something a little bit bittersweet, but I think many of us suspected it. Last week, Jen Beattie, MBE, announced her retirement from international football for Scotland after 144 caps, 14 years and 24 goals. She started at the under-17 level and worked her way up to senior. In 2011, she played striker in a game against England. She scored a goal which resulted in Scotland winning 2-0. It happened to be the first time Scotland had beaten England since 1977. She helped the team qualify for the 2019 World Cup. I think for now she will stick to playing for Arsenal, but you never know after everything she's bravely been through. What a career though, and what an inspiration to everyone. And that concludes this week's podcast. I really hope you enjoy it. I've spoken a little bit more today, a little bit more free-for-all. My episode last week was around 25 minutes. This probably be a little bit longer. I wasn't expecting that to be so short, so I wanted to try and make up for it. As always, send me a comment, follow me on social media, let me know what you want me to talk about, and I'll speak to you all next week. Bye.